The forest was alive in a way that made the hair on Liora's arms rise. Even the wind seemed to watch her, weaving through the trees with a hushed intensity, carrying scents of moss, damp earth, and something older, something almost alive. She tightened her grip on the leather-bound journal at her side. It was heavy, not from its weight, but because of what it represented, every secret she had scribbled, every confession she had never spoken aloud. For years, Liora had tried to move on from the mistake that haunted her. One careless choice, one decision made in a moment of fear and selfishness, had rippled across the lives of those she loved most. She had buried it deep, telling herself that no one would ever know, not even herself. Yet, no matter how far she walked, how much she tried to lose herself in daily tasks, the memory clung, twisting like a vine around her chest. She had wandered farther than she intended that morning, following a narrow, winding path through the forest. The sun slanted through the trees, creating a mosaic of gold and green on the damp earth. Birds chirped softly, and somewhere in the distance, a brook murmured over rocks, a gentle, constant rhythm. Yet the deeper she went, the heavier the air became, and the whispers began. At first, she dismissed them, tricks of the wind, the rustle of leaves, but then a sound brushed against her ear, soft and deliberate. "Come, see what you hide," her pulse quickened. Her breath caught. Something inside her recognized the call, though she could not explain why. Fear warred with curiosity, and yet the pull was irresistible. It tugged at her like a current beneath calm water, unseen but powerful. She followed it, stepping carefully over roots and stones, until she came upon the shimmer. It was subtle at first, a bend in the air, a faint glimmer, but as she approached, it solidified. A gate, constructed entirely of twisted vines and flowers that seemed to shimmer in dark hues, appeared before her. Petals dark as night glinted faintly, reflecting the dappled sunlight in impossible ways. The gate beckoned, curling slightly as if it were breathing. Liora's hands shook as she reached for it. The air was cooler here, heavy with the scent of soil and something she could not name, something almost sacred. A whisper caressed her ear again, softer this time, like a sigh from another world. "Enter, the garden awaits those who bear the weight." Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. She hesitated, a thousand thoughts battling inside her, fear of the unknown, memories of her past failures, the haunting guilt that had shadowed her life. And yet, stronger than anything else, was a pull she could not resist. It was a longing for release, for understanding, for a chance to face what she had spent years hiding. She stepped through the gate. The world changed instantly. The path behind her seemed to vanish, swallowed by shadows and leaves, leaving only the garden stretching before her. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Flowers bloomed in colors that did not exist in her world, petals deep as midnight with edges glowing faintly, as though lit from within. Vines curled and twisted like the fingers of an unseen hand, brushing lightly against her sleeves as she walked past. The whispers grew, circling around her, a chorus of voices both familiar and strange. Each sound seemed to carry meaning. Secrets, regrets, sins, all brushed against her mind. She stumbled slightly, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions. Some whispers were hers, echoing truths she had long ignored. Others belonged to people she had never met, ghosts of guilt and sorrow left behind by those who had come to the garden before her. And then he appeared. The figure stepped silently from the shadows, tall and cloaked, face partly obscured. His eyes glimmered like dark glass, reflecting the strange light of the garden. There was something in his presence that demanded attention, that made her instinctively pause and straighten her posture, despite the trembling in her legs. "You shouldn't be here unless you carry it," he said, voice calm, steady, and impossible to ignore. I think I do," Liora whispered, words trembling. I don't know if I'm ready." The figure inclined his head slightly. "The garden does not choose without reason. It has called you. And now that it has, there is no turning back. You will see what lies beneath your own heart." The garden seemed to react to his words. Shadows shifted, the flowers bent toward her as if acknowledging her presence. A cool breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the faint scent of rain and earth, whispering words Liora felt more than heard: face it, or remain forever in shadow. She swallowed, heart hammering in her chest. Every instinct screamed to run, but another part, a quieter, desperate part, urged her forward. She took a tentative step deeper into the garden, her fingers brushing petals that were warm and alive under her touch. The whispers intensified, circling her, murmuring secrets she had forgotten, mistakes she had buried, regrets she had tried to ignore. A memory surfaced unbidden, a moment of betrayal, a choice she had made in fear that had hurt someone she loved. She had hidden it, even from herself, but now it clawed at her from within, undeniable, raw. Her knees weakened, and she sank slightly to the soft earth beneath the garden's glowing plants. Why am I here?" she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. The figure, the caretaker, stepped closer, his cloak brushing against the flowers. "Because the truth will set you free, or bind you forever. The choice is yours. Confront it, or let it define you." Liora's hands clenched the journal at her side. She realized, with sudden clarity, that she had been running from herself all these years. The garden had not called her by chance, it had called her because she could no longer hide. And with a deep, shuddering breath, she stepped further into the heart of the garden of shadows, ready to face the first whisper of her own guilt. The flowers seemed to lean closer, their petals shimmering with faint, inner light, as if acknowledging her courage. For the first time in years, fear and hope intertwined within her. She did not know what the garden would demand, what truths it would reveal, or whether she could bear the weight of the secrets she carried. But one thing was certain, the garden had chosen her, and she could not turn back. The whispers circled her, growing louder, forming words only she could understand. Some were hers. Some were not. All demanded attention. And as the shadows of the garden deepened around her, Liora took a firm, trembling step forward. She had come seeking release, and she would face the shadows to find it, even if it meant confronting the darkest corners of her own soul. Liora's feet pressed softly into the damp soil of the garden, each step sending faint ripples across the glowing petals. The whispers swirled around her, sometimes almost gentle, like a breeze brushing her cheek, other times sharp, cutting, demanding acknowledgement. She clutched the leather journal tighter, as though it could anchor her to the world she had left behind. "You cannot hide from what you carry," the caretaker said, stepping silently beside her. Thorn's presence was calm, yet imposing, like the forest itself had taken human form. His eyes reflected the light of the shimmering flowers, dark and unyielding. The garden only blooms for those willing to face the truth. Liora swallowed, heart hammering. I don't know if I can. Some things I've tried to forget. The garden sees them anyway, Thorn replied softly. It will reveal them, whether you're ready or not. A rustle came from the shadows, a figure emerging, tentative and hunched. Liora instinctively stepped back, shielding herself with her arms. The newcomer's clothing was worn, dust-streaked, face pale from fear or neglect, and eyes wide with the same raw dread that mirrored her own. You hear them too?" the stranger asked, voice barely above a whisper. Liora nodded. "The whispers, they speak of things I've buried. Things I don't want to remember." The stranger hesitated, then stepped closer. I carry guilt too," he admitted. "This garden, it knows it. It won't let me leave until I face it." Liora's throat tightened. She realized she was not alone in this place. Others, like her, had been called. Each visitor bore their own secrets, their own regrets, their own pain, and the garden responded differently to each soul. The plants leaned toward them, petals glowing faintly, some curling in shadow, others stretching toward the light. Thorn guided them to a cluster of midnight black flowers, their edges glowing a soft silver. "This is where the garden begins its test," he said. "These blooms will reveal the first truth you avoid, the one that has shadowed your life." Liora's knees wobbled. She approached the flowers slowly. The whispers intensified, swirling around her head, pressing at her thoughts like invisible fingers. She could hear a voice she had not spoken aloud in years, the memory she had tried to bury. The mistake that had set everything in motion. A child's laughter, once bright, now tinged with betrayal. A letter left unsent. A promise broken. Her heart clenched painfully as the truth came forward, impossible to ignore. "You see it," Thorn murmured, his voice calm, patient, but firm. "You cannot move forward until you name it, until you acknowledge it for what it is." Leora's voice trembled as she whispered the truth, words catching in her throat. I betrayed someone I loved. I chose my own fear over them." The flowers shivered. Their glow shifted from silver to gold, then radiated a gentle warmth, as if the garden itself acknowledged her confession. For a moment, the whispers softened, becoming almost soothing, like wind through trees. But the relief was short-lived. From deeper within the shadows, more whispers emerged, overlapping with hers. Other secrets floated near, brushing against her mind, and Liora realized the garden's test had only begun. The mistakes, regrets, and sins of past visitors mingled with her own, forming a chorus of guilt she could not ignore. The stranger who had appeared earlier stepped forward again. "I thought I could handle it," he said, voice raw with emotion, "but the garden, it doesn't just show your own sins. It forces you to witness others, too. Their pain, it becomes yours if you let it." Liora nodded, understanding now that escape was impossible. The garden demanded confrontation, not avoidance. Every whisper, every shadow, every glowing petal was a reflection, not just of what she had done, but what she had failed to do, what she had ignored, and what she had feared facing. Thorn led her to a small pool at the center of the garden. Its surface was still, black as ink, reflecting the twisted flowers and shadowed trees above. "Look into it," he instructed. "See yourself not as you wish to be, but as you truly are. Only by facing this reflection can you find the path forward." Liora knelt by the pool, breath shaking. Her reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, tense, haunted. She could see the burden she carried, the shadow of her mistakes etched into every line of her face. She wanted to look away, to run, to deny it, but Thorn's gaze held her steady. I'm ready," she whispered. I will face it." The whispers grew softer, gentler, as if acknowledging her courage. The garden seemed to lean toward her, the flowers brightening subtly. Shadows receded slightly from the path ahead. For the first time since entering, Liora felt a sliver of hope. "Good," Thorn said, stepping back. "This is only the beginning. The garden tests every soul it calls. There will be more truths to confront, more shadows to face. But you have taken the first step, facing yourself without denial. That is always the hardest." Liora rose to her feet, chest tight but steady, journal clutched in her hands. The whispers circled around her, not menacing, but alive, full of stories and burdens. She realized that to move forward, she could not shrink from them. She would need to walk deeper into the garden, confront more truths, and face the echoes of guilt she had tried to ignore. The sun filtered faintly through the dense canopy above, casting a green-gold light across the flowers. Liora took a deep breath. She would continue. She would not flee. The garden had called her for a reason, and she would see this journey through, whatever it demanded. And somewhere, just beyond the next grove, a glow shifted in the shadows. Liora did not yet know what awaited her, but she was ready to meet it. The deeper Liora stepped into the garden, the heavier the air became. The glowing flowers seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat, each step sending faint ripples of light across their petals. Shadows danced around her, twisting into shapes that reminded her of past mistakes, faces she had wronged, moments she had fled from, choices she had made in fear. Thorn walked silently beside her, his presence a calm anchor amidst the garden's restless whispers. His dark eyes, reflecting the luminescent petals, were unreadable. "The garden does not punish," he said softly. "It shows. And it tests. To leave, you must not only face what you've done, but what you fear to acknowledge." Leora's chest tightened. She had faced the first truth, spoken aloud the secret she had kept hidden for years, yet now the garden demanded more. From the shadows, whispers multiplied. Some were familiar, others strange. They formed words she could barely comprehend, echoing in her mind. "You failed. You could have done more. You left them behind." A chill ran down her spine. She stopped, forcing herself to inhale deeply. I did what I could," she whispered, though her voice wavered. The words felt hollow. The garden seemed to pulse with disapproval, as if testing the sincerity behind her claim. Ahead, a path opened into a grove of black and silver flowers. The petals shimmered, curling inward like hands holding secrets. Liora approached cautiously. As she drew closer, she saw movement, another visitor, kneeling among the flowers. Their eyes were closed, their lips moving as if confessing aloud. "You hear them too," the stranger murmured, eyes fluttering open. They won't let us go until we face everything." Liora nodded, swallowing hard. I know. And I have to." The flowers leaned toward her, their whispers now unmistakable. Each bloom spoke a different fear, a hidden truth, a regret long buried. Leora's own memories surfaced like waves crashing in her mind, a friend she had abandoned, words she had never spoken to her parents, promises she had broken in moments of cowardice. The weight of it pressed against her chest, suffocating yet strangely cleansing. Thorn stopped at the edge of the grove. "Look deeper, Liora. Do not stop at what is easy to confess. The garden tests the depth of your courage." She knelt among the flowers, trembling. A single bloom, black as night with silver-edged petals, shifted toward her, whispering words she had never dared acknowledge. "You were selfish. You chose safety over love. You betrayed them." Leora's hands shook. The words cut deeper than any blade. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the damp soil beneath her knees. Yes, I was selfish," she whispered through choked breaths. "I betrayed those I loved. I was afraid, but I cannot hide it anymore." The garden responded immediately. The petals glowed brighter, the whispers softening. Shadows retreated slightly, as if acknowledging her bravery. A warmth spread through the grove, faint at first, then growing, like sunlight breaking through dense clouds. Another whisper, gentler this time, floated to her ears. "You have faced the first truth. Now, see how your actions affect others." Liora looked up. The other visitor from earlier, Kale, stepped toward her. His face was pale, haunted. I've done harm too," he confessed. "I thought hiding it would make it disappear, but the garden, it won't let me." Liora reached out a trembling hand. "Then don't face it alone. We can help each other." Kale nodded. Together, they moved through the grove, sharing confessions aloud. Each revelation seemed to lighten the air, the shadows shrinking with every truth spoken. Liora felt a strange connection forming, not just to Kale, but to the unseen chorus of voices that had brought the garden to life. Thorn's gaze followed her, unreadable but approving. "The garden mirrors your soul. The more honest you are, the brighter the path becomes. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is facing it, even when it threatens to consume you. Hours, or perhaps minutes, time had no meaning here, passed. Liora felt exhaustion settle into her bones, yet a small spark of clarity had ignited. She had begun to untangle the web of guilt and fear that had dominated her life. The garden seemed to respond, petals glowing golden, shadows softening, light spilling gently across the path ahead. Finally, she paused in a small clearing, surrounded by blooms that shimmered like starlight. For the first time, she felt not just fear or guilt, but hope. A tiny, fragile hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she could leave this place without carrying the same weight she had brought. Thorn stepped forward. "You are ready to go deeper, Liora. The heart of the garden awaits, where your final truths lie. Only by confronting the deepest corner of your soul can the path to freedom open." Liora swallowed hard, nodding. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I'm ready. I will face it." The whispers circled her, no longer sharp or accusing, but alive with the promise of change. The garden seemed to lean toward her, acknowledging her courage. And in the center of the clearing, a faint glow pulsed, a light that promised both revelation and redemption. Liora's journey into the heart of the garden was only beginning, and though the shadows of her past loomed large, she felt a strength she had not known in years. For the first time, she understood, the garden was not her prison. It was her mirror. And the mirror would not break her, if she had the courage to face it fully. The clearing before her pulsed with a soft, golden light that seemed to breathe. Liora stepped forward cautiously, the whispers of the garden growing quieter, yet more insistent. She knew, instinctively, that this was the heart of the garden, the place where the deepest, most hidden truths waited. Thorn stood silently behind her, his shadow long and steady. "This is the final trial," he said. "You must confront the truth you fear most. Not what others see, not what you have confessed before, but the part of yourself you have refused to face." Liora's chest tightened. She had already confessed guilt, shared the burden with others, faced shadows that clawed at her mind, but something deeper lingered, something that had defined her for years without her realizing it. The flowers around her began to shift, curling into shapes that seemed almost human. Shadows lengthened, reaching toward her, and a chill ran down her spine. Then, from the very center of the clearing, a figure emerged, not Thorn, not any of the other visitors, but a reflection of herself. It was Liora, yet hollow-eyed, trembling, weighed down by fear and self-loathing. The figure raised a hand, pointing at her with a voice that was eerily her own. "You abandoned hope. You betrayed yourself. You cannot escape the truth of what you are." Liora staggered back. "No, no. That's not all I am." Her voice shook, tears streaming freely. "I made mistakes. I was afraid, but I never stopped caring. I never stopped trying to do better." The reflection laughed, a hollow, haunting sound. "Words are easy. Actions are not. You hid. You ran. You left others to bear the consequences." Liora's knees went weak. She sank to the ground, overwhelmed by the weight of years of guilt. The garden's whispers swirled around her, a storm of voices from her past, each one accusing, questioning, demanding acknowledgement. And then she heard a single, gentle voice, not from the garden, not from her reflection, but deep within her own heart. "You are more than your mistakes. You have the courage to face them. You can forgive yourself." With a shuddering breath, Liora closed her eyes and spoke aloud, not just to the garden, not just to her reflection, but to herself. "I see you. I see everything I have done. I accept it. I forgive myself. I will not let fear or guilt define me any longer." The words rang in the air. The garden responded immediately. The shadows receded, curling back into the soil and flowers. The black and silver blooms brightened to gold and green, petals unfurling fully as if breathing for the first time. The trees above shifted, sunlight piercing through the canopy, scattering warmth across the clearing. Her reflection softened, its hollow eyes filling with light. Slowly, the image dissolved into a shower of golden petals that drifted around Liora like falling leaves. A sense of peace, long absent from her life, settled over her chest. Thorn stepped forward, a faint smile touching his lips. You have faced the deepest truth. The garden recognizes your courage. You are free to leave, Liora Ven. Liora stood, feeling lighter than she had in years. The whispers were gone, replaced by a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of earth, flowers, and sunlight. The garden had transformed before her eyes, no longer a place of shadows and weight, but a sanctuary of light and life. She walked toward the gate through which she had entered, each step grounding her in the world outside. The forest beyond seemed brighter, alive with color and sound. Birds sang with clarity, streams sparkled with renewed vigor, and the wind whispered not of accusation, but of hope. Before stepping through, she turned for one last glance at the garden. It shimmered softly, petals glowing like stars, as if acknowledging her courage and transformation. Thorn's figure remained, watching silently, a guardian of the secrets and truths within. Liora whispered to herself, voice steady and clear, I am more than my mistakes. I am whole. I am free. And as she stepped through the gate, the garden of shadows faded gently behind her, waiting for the next soul in need of courage, understanding, and redemption. The sun warmed her face, gentle and golden, seeping into the corners of her being that had long been cold and shadowed. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of earth and growing things, and Liora breathed it in deeply, letting it fill her lungs, her heart, her very soul. She had not felt this alive in years, not since before the fears, the guilt, the endless nights haunted by whispered regrets. Now, the world around her shimmered with possibility, bright and welcoming, and she could feel its pulse, steady and unwavering, beneath her feet. In her hand, she carried her journal. Once, it had been a burden, a weight pressing down on her chest with every word she wrote, every memory revisited, every truth confessed. But now, it felt different. It was not a chain, it was a compass, a testament to her journey, a reminder of growth and courage. Each page held the evidence of battles fought, not with others, but with herself. Each word was a monument to the strength she had summoned in moments when fear had threatened to drown her. She ran her fingers over the leather cover, feeling the smoothness of the worn edges, and smiled softly. The journal had been a witness to her pain, and now it was a companion in her freedom. Liora walked slowly through the open field that stretched before her, letting the sunlight spill over her shoulders. The wind teased her hair, playful and warm, and she lifted her face, closing her eyes, savoring the sensation. For the first time in a long time, she felt unburdened, unafraid. The shadows of the past, dark, twisting, and relentless, had fallen behind her. They had tried to hold her, to break her, but she had faced them. She had faced herself. And now, walking in the gentle light of this new day, she realized that the journey through darkness had not been a curse but a crucible, shaping her into someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more alive. She could hear the faint rustle of leaves in the trees nearby, the distant song of a bird that had found its morning chorus, and she felt connected to the world in a way she hadn't for years. Every breath, every heartbeat, every step was a reminder of how far she had come. The garden had given her this, a gift she hadn't thought she could deserve. It had shown her that freedom was not just an escape from pain, but an embrace of life itself, with all its beauty and uncertainty. And as Liora continued to walk, sunlight warming her skin and wind brushing past her cheeks. She carried the garden with her, not in some secret place buried within, but in the very essence of who she had become. The journey had ended, the shadows had lifted, and in their place was light, steady and radiant. She would carry it forever.